Welcome to In Search of the Divine. I'm Ann Thompson. We all take our turns going through the dark night of the soul, but today we're going to talk to people who have found that a little bit of faith, some hope, and some love can help navigate the way. Stay tuned.
Hi, we're the St. Joseph Workers.
We are women between the ages of 21 and 30, volunteering in a one-year service program based on the core values of spirituality, leadership, community, and social justice.
The St. Joseph Worker Program is a ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph who strive to love God and dear neighbor without distinction.
In the program, we focus on living simply and sustainably,
working to assist those in need in communities where we live,
and learning about justice issues so we can advocate for systemic change.
If you would like to live with intention for a year and
grow your spirit
and learn more about justice issues
and polish your leadership skills,
then check us out at stjosephworkers.org.
1, 2, 3, St. Joseph Workers!
The National Institute of Mental Health claims an estimated 26.2% of Americans ages 18 and older, about 1 in 4 adults, suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder in a given year. Today we'll hear from people dealing directly and indirectly with biological brain disorders. Meet Donna. She's the program director at NAMI Minnesota.
I'm a suicide survivor. My father died by suicide when I was very young.
This is Ryan, an author and play-by-play announcer for Major League Baseball's Kansas City Royals.
The best thing I probably did is that I realized I was depressed, and I went at my recovery as a depressed person.
Theresa lives in Minneapolis.
It was at that point, a 2-month stay at the hospital, that they figured out that I actually have bipolar. I'm living with bipolar.
Anne and Michael are survivors of their daughter's suicide.
Why couldn't God have done something to stop this? Theresa was an innocent girl. She never deserved anything like this.
Theresa was 14 when she died.
Amazing stories, and as we're about to learn, all part of the sacred journey through the dark night of the soul.
I had my first suicidal thought at age 5, so I've never known a life without mental illness. Didn't understand mental illness, didn't understand my symptoms or how to deal with them. And then when I was 21, and I was going to school, I started feeling depressed and not sleeping well, sleeping too much, then not sleeping at all.
She was diagnosed with major depression, a couple months earlier, and so she was dealing with that. This act that she did was definitely a result of what she was suffering internally.
When you're depressed, you begin to feel as though you're the only one who could possibly have these feelings, and everyone around you is just having this great big party. Everyone's so happy. Everyone looks so much more happy and content, and so the anxiety really took over. I mean, it really took over, where I could barely get through the day.
As is so often the case, our experiences lead to a fulcrum where the balance shifts.
Everyone handles grief differently, but I would recommend when the hair on the back of your neck stands up and something doesn't seem right, it's time to talk to a doctor. And the hard part is the person who's involved can't always feel it. Depression can be very insidious. It is insidious. It creeps up on you.
I find myself in August of 2005 in a closet in my bedroom in this house where I'm sitting right now, fetal position, just crying like a 4, 5, or 6-year-old, because that's when I really started to feel this detachment.
I always had the wrong diagnosis because they never seen the manic part of me. They only saw the depressive side. So from 14 to 31, I was misdiagnosed. And that caused a lot of problems with my life.
It was 3 years ago, November 1st, ironically All Saints Day. Thought she had been napping, but she wasn't on her bed. And then I looked the other way, and there she was, not living.
When I went up to the room to find out what was going on, I was just in shock what I saw. Theresa was being held by Ann. There was a ring around her neck, and I thought that, I mean, this ring was like so dark, I thought it was like something was still on her neck, but there wasn't anything on her neck, and I felt it just to prove to myself that there was nothing there, and there wasn't anything there.
Suicide, I believe now they're saying, is the 10th leading cause of death in this country. It is the 3rd leading cause of death among young people.
More on the spirituality of mental illness in a minute.
Prayer is a powerful thing. If you would like the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet to pray for you or a special intention, visit the prayersplease.com website or download a free Android, iPhone, iPad, or BlackBerry app on your smartphone. Once you submit a request, it is forwarded to Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet in New York, Missouri, Minnesota, California, and Hawaii, and they are honored to pray for your intentions.
We've heard some pretty challenging journeys into mental illness, but as we're about to hear, there is a way through it.
I decided I was going to go see my doctor, and that's where I kind of started the path to anti-anxiety medication, which I took for about 4 to 6 weeks until the antidepressants got into my system and really started to calm me down. But that was the beginning of the process for me, just going to a doctor and telling a professional, hey, I think there's something wrong with me. And I remember my doctor just calmly said, well, let me give you a couple prescriptions. I mean, I thought they were going to, like, you know, tie me down to a chair and, you know, wheel me out to the, you know, middle of Kansas or something and just leave me there for the rest of my life. But he said, okay, why don't you try this, and this will deal with these symptoms, and then this drug should, you know, at some point take care of the both of them. And then I went, you know, I was starting to go to some counseling, and so I think, and then the people sharing their stories with me, I think I just started to see that even though it wasn't going to be easy, that, you know, maybe I will be okay.
They've actually found that for people living with depression, peer-to-peer support can be as effective as an antidepressant. It's really important to know that you're not alone.
The year after I went through the depression, a story was written about me in the Kansas City Star and what I had gone through. I started to talk to people, and word spread, and well, I'm getting letters and cards from strangers. Thank you for sharing your story. I was going through the same thing. Thank you for being honest, you know. Thank you for being transparent. You know, I feel a lot stronger now that I've read your story. Then I began to realize, well, you know, maybe this is a story that does need to be told.
One of the things that we did as a family, we went to a grief support group on 2 separate occasions.
A 6-week.
A 6-week track. And our kids just surprisingly really wanted to go to that. I thought they wouldn't want this at all, and they really liked that, and I think it helped them, helped us. And also, we some of our kids since Theresa's death have been in some therapy too, to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So that's an important component of the healing, you know, as well.
You know, it's kind of retraining your body, mind, and spirit to be in sync. Really try to work a lot on my spirituality and myself. And not just that, but how I treat others, and knowing what I know about my journey, and how everybody has that little spark of light in them. Even in the darkest of days, you have that bright light, that internal flame that keeps on going. And so, for me, that's important to remember, that that flame is never extinguished.
If struggling through the vicissitudes of a brain disorder isn't enough on its own, there are cultural issues too.
I do remember a sense of I was going to be exposed, you know, I was a failure, I was an imposter. Somebody's going to see right through this facade I was trying to portray when I'd go to the ballpark every day, and they would see that there was a scared little boy and I was going to lose my job, and I was going to lose my car, I was going to lose my house, I was going to lose my friends, I was going to lose everything. And so there was just this fear that the world was just kind of crashing down on me.
The stigma is very strong. The stigma is a huge roadblock for people in getting help.
You know, you don't have to walk around with a billboard on your forehead that says, I'm living with bipolar or schizophrenia or what have you. But you can reach out to those resources that will support you and, you know, help you get a life worth living, where you're wanted and your assets to the community are accepted and appreciated. Because we all want to feel like we're contributing to society. And sometimes, you know, you just get battered down so bad you don't think you can. But everybody has something to give to the world and the community and the little community and everything.
Don't let people tell you, or don't think that you're abnormal or you're weird because, or you don't want other people to know about the possibility of your child having a mental illness.
We just have to remember the brain is part of the body, and the brain can get sick too. And there are treatments and there's help. The saddest thing is that the average person waits about 10 years after the onset of symptoms to get help.
Despite it being 2013, there still is a stigma about mental illness, as if in some way a person could control that. You know, in my mind, it's just as real as diabetes. Do we blame people for having diabetes? No. How about our heart condition? How about cancer?
People kind of look down on you. There's a lot of stigma around that, and which is unfortunate because that keeps a lot of people from getting treatment, and we know that mental illness is treatable and suicide's preventable.
Every week, thousands of Catholic adults use Sunday by Sunday to reflect on the Gospels of the liturgical year. Sunday by Sunday is a publication of the Sisters of St. Joseph in St. Paul, Minnesota. Sunday by Sunday is ready to use, just 4 brief pages each week. It begins and ends with prayer. Its questions inspire adults to share the faith they live and to wrestle with what Jesus in the Gospels asks of us in our time, in our neighborhoods, and our world. Leading a faith-sharing group is easy and life-giving with Sunday by Sunday. For free samples, visit our website, goodgroundpress.com, or call 800-232-5533. And join our conversations online at keepingfaithtoday.com, Facebook, and Twitter.
While dealing with mental illness may not be culturally appreciated, it seems, at least with these sojourners, that the journey can bring about remarkable and insightful wisdom.
The big lesson is never give up. That no matter how bad it gets, it'll always get better. And that you really got to look at yourself and treat yourself with love and respect.
Big lesson for me as a suicide survivor is that there's a lot of anger involved when someone leaves you through a suicide, and it can take a long time to get through that anger, but it's certainly worthwhile because I finally got to a point where I couldn't be angry with an illness.
Hopefully someday someone will be able to say, I don't know if this will happen, yeah, I was just crying in my closet for an hour, so I think I'm going to go see a doctor. And then it won't be, you know, there won't be the stigma attached to depression as there is now and as there was when I was going through what I was going through.
If I were to talk to parents, I'd say listen to your gut and you follow it. And another thing we've learned in our experience with mental illness is you have to be an advocate and you have to get out there and make it happen, because there are so many loopholes in the mental health system that people who are so vulnerable, they just fall right through the crack.
You know, there was a period where I was very angry at Theresa and at God. You can only hold on to your anger for so long.
I got angry at the illness, and I got angry at the barriers to getting help, and that's where I put my focus.
You know, I mean, I don't think anybody that goes through what I went through feels like, you know, they're cured of it. You just learn to manage it. I mean, I still have deep, dark moments to this day, but I know how to cut them off.
Since 1 in 4 of us experiences mental health issues, it might be good to understand the signals so that we can help ourselves or those we love.
If my gut tells me that someone I love is struggling in any way that would indicate to me that they may have a mental illness or may be thinking about suicide, I would act immediately. Some steps that you can take are to ask them directly, don't wait. Ask them, are you thinking about suicide? Stay with them until you can get the help that they need. You can talk to them about what would you like us to do at this point? Do you want me to go with you to the hospital? Do you want me to call your doctor? Should we make an appointment? I'll go with you.
Signs. If a person were to notice extreme behavior in an otherwise pretty peaceful child, and in her case we noticed her withdrawing more and spending time alone. Her sleep patterns were off. She was not sleeping at night and sleeping a lot during the day. Eating patterns were disturbed.
Another sign, I guess, would be she was cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting, yeah, and she had a couple of pretty significant cuts on her arm.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to seek help. When you need it, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to just be yourself and know that it doesn't always have to be this way, but you have to work at it. It's not like, oh, I'm going to flip a switch and I'll be fine. It's a lot of work. It's working on your spirituality, therapy, medications, meditation, exercise, eating healthy. You know, it's like a full-time job. Do some research. Find out places that will support you. There's a lot of different mental health agencies out there that will support you. There's support groups out there, NAMI connections, and there's ways to develop support groups. Sometimes it may not be family. Maybe it's your made-up family, you know, those friends that are close to you that, you know, because your family isn't ready yet to accept that you have a mental illness. Or, you know, or they feel ashamed.
So the first step is just to reach out, just share it with somebody, just let somebody know how you feel. And there's a solution, and there's an opening of a window to a dimension of our life that we weren't even aware of that's causing us to behave and feel the way we feel. Go to a doctor. Doctors are trained to deal with everything. See a professional counselor. They're trained to deal with issues like this, and if you're like me and you go in there and you think, okay, this is going to knock this person out of their chair when I tell them what I'm going through, and then it doesn't knock them out of their chair, and there's a solution.
If you're observing someone who is having a hard time maybe pulling out of a situational type grief, because we've all experienced depression, as routinely, grief and loss is a part of life, so we all can understand what depression is like. It's when you can't pull out of it that it's concerning.
You need to feel that you're wanted and that you deserve to have a life worth living. And a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people with mental illness isolate. And our society doesn't make it easier for people to not isolate because of all the stigma out there.
Moving always towards profound love of God and neighbor without distinction. This is the mission.
This is the movement.
We are the community of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet and Consociates.
And we invite you to join us. We are women and men of various ages, backgrounds, and faith traditions.
Sisters, commonly known as CSJs, founded this movement over 360 years ago in France. Then, as now, women respond to the needs of the times through work and prayer in community.
The Sisters' passion and work for justice has inspired others to join them, including Consociates, who formally affiliate with the CSJs and live out this mission in their own lives.
Young adults find a spiritual community here through transformative learning, intentional living, and organic communal gardening.
Find the many ways you can join this movement. Visit us online.
Together, let us build a world of peace, justice, and reconciliation.
If every life is a sacred journey, then what are the spiritual lessons associated with mental illness?
I've always felt like, even though I've had these suicidal thoughts, there's always been like somebody watching over me. You know, it's just the spirits around you, you know, guardian angel, always there protecting you, because I couldn't protect myself.
The humbling and crazy part of this whole story was that I asked for all this. Being a man of faith and desiring to be a man of faith, I started to pray for purification. And that when I prayed for purity, I wish I could go back and see what his response was, kind of like, are you sure? This might not be very fun. I mean, we all have this void in our lives. And I needed to fill that up with my faith. You know, I needed to develop a relationship, a deeper relationship with God, in that I speak to him as if he is my Father and he's in the room. And prayer for me is, here's what I'm going through. I want to share this with you. And thank you for listening. And you'll probably give me some direction at some point.
The biggest thing I think for me is that I learned that sometimes we have to suffer and we don't understand why things happen the way they do. But I trust that God has a reason for allowing things to happen.
And so for me, I'm seeing Christ as walking with me. And doesn't mean there's not pain. In fact, the pain sort of shatters and cracks who you thought you were, and is recreated. So my journey since her death has been intense and deep and painful.
So my spirituality is pretty important to me. My church has a mental health ministry that I've been part of for several years, and that's important to me, that my spiritual home is also welcoming and accepting of people living with mental illness and stuff. That there's no more of this shame that you have mental illness. I used to always think all life is valuable except for mine, and now I see it as all life is valuable, including mine.
I mean, the healthy thing to do with suffering is to just let it come to you and let it be present to you, and not deny it or not run from it or fight it. That God gives grace to people to endure what they need to endure.
It means we have to put one foot in front of the other and trust that one day this pain will lessen, and God's grace and God's goodness will come through this somehow.
We had talked a little bit about things that lead up to being in recovery, and spirituality being one, can be one, and I see it as giving that hope that that even though we feel alone, we're not alone, and for some people that in itself is just life-saving. I also believe that a community of faith can be very helpful, because you now have people around you and people who care, and being alone is not helpful if you're living with depression If you're contemplating suicide, certainly we don't want isolation, but that is the tendency, to isolate when we're feeling depressed.
I just want to continue to live a happy life and keep on working towards recovery, and I think this is the happiest I've ever been in my life, so yeah, you know, it feels good to be alive.
So we all take our turns going through the dark night of the soul, but what we found today is that some faith, some hope, and some love for ourselves and for those we care about can make the difference. Thanks for watching.